Are more animals really better, and does it really mean that you're gonna make a lot more money? You might be surprised at the answer. This is probably one of the #1 questions that we get asked on our channel, and probably the #1 comment that we get in our comment section of our videos. Today I wanna spend some time talking about the number of animals that you have, and if it's a good thing or a bad thing, or somewhere in between. Stay tuned to find out more. Hey everyone, it's Tim from Linessa Farms Specialty and Heirloom Livestock. Thanks for joining us again today. Our animals have recently come off a pasture. They've gone to dry lot. We run what we call a blended system here on Linessa Farms. We have multiple pastures in multiple different areas that we graze our animals on about 6 to 8 months out of the year. And then during the winter months, we bring them back to a dry lot confinement area where we can control their feed and give them plenty of shelter from the cold, wind, and wet temperatures that we experience here in Northwest Indiana. So one of the top questions that I get asked a lot on our channel is, should I get more animals? How many animals should I have? And then kind of as a people gauging you and trying to get a feel for how much you know and what's going on your farm, probably the top question I get from a lot of producers that have been in the game for a number of years, and you may have experienced this too, is they're like, well, how many animals do you have? You can usually tell if someone's getting ready to try to blow you up because they're gonna ask you 2 questions, and I know a lot of you have experienced this before. They're gonna say, how long have you been doing this and how many animals do you have? I wanted to talk about a few points, and I wanted to discuss if it's right, if it's not, if it matters, if it doesn't, if you're gonna make more profits or if you're actually going to lose money, and all the things that go in between. So with that being said, let's head up to the studio and spend a little bit of time talking about this together. As always, everything that we're gonna talk about in this video is very important, and you're gonna wanna stick with us to the end. If you like the content that you're seeing, if you've been with us for a while, make sure that you smash that like button down below and make sure that you subscribe. So when we talk about the number of animals that we have, it really turns into a lot more than this. People like to comment or question and say, well, how many animals do you have? You have to get out of that mindset. Now, obviously raising a bunch of different animals is a little bit different than only raising a few, but really a lot of this comes down to time management and just general practices. If you're able to take care of a couple animals in a really, really good fashion, you know which drugs to give or not to give, you know how to treat them, you know how to treat the ailments and things that they're going to run into, you're going to be able to do this with 20 animals, 40 animals, 100 animals, 200 animals. The things that are essentially going to change are the methods that are used. You may need to get a handling system. You may need to get a different feed system down. You may need to get larger equipment, larger trailers, larger barns, things like that. But essentially, the nuts and bolts of good animal husbandry is no different with a few animals or with a bunch. Now, some individuals are going to say, oh, well, you know, these animals really don't need this. You can just get as many as you need and you just throw them out on pasture and you just let them fend for themselves. And that's kind of more of a fairy tale, not at all something that fits everyone. The reality is most people are going to raise in some kind of hybrid style. That is to say they're going to have some pasturing and some dry lot. And even those individuals that have pasturing, the reality is you're still going to have to learn how to take care of sick animals. You're still going to learn how to have to handle them, how to do things like hoof trimming. We know lots and lots of people that only have a few animals that take very, very good care of them. We know individuals that have lots and lots of animals that it is just a disgusting disaster, and those animals don't get cared for very well at all. If you have too many animals, it can be harder to track them. It can be harder to keep them healthy. Why is this? Well, people get lost in the weeds, you know. That is to say, not physically in the weeds, but animals get out there to where we're not keeping an eye on every single one of them every day. You may not be able to establish as good of a relationship with them to where you know how they're feeling by how they're acting. And, you know, those high number of animals can actually cause a deficit in that regard. So I want you to remember, anytime we multiply numbers, we're multiplying lots and lots of things. We're multiplying the number of space that we're going to need. Okay, how big of a barn do you need? And we're multiplying the amount of feed that we're going to need. And we're all multiplying the amount of medicine that we're going to need. And all of these things equate to more money and more money and more money. People kind of forget that a lot of breeding goes into quality. How healthy is the animal? How healthy is the male when he's breeding? How healthy is the female when she's breeding? You know, that health we've talked about in the past when we talk about flushing, that can come down to how good is ovulation, how many eggs does that female drop. I'll let you answer this question for yourself. if you have 7 ewes versus 14. If you're able to feed those 7 very, very well, keep those 7 very, very healthy, they all have twins, or a majority of them have twins, all those babies are strong and healthy, and they're doing really well. What if you have 14 and only half of them have twins and the rest of them have singles? Or what if those babies that they have are weak? Or what if you lose some because something happens and you're not able to take care of them? How much more feed is it going to take to feed those 14 versus those 7? Don't get too hung up in the fact, and we get asked this a lot. People say, well, how many animals do I have to have a profit? Getting more doesn't necessarily always equate to bigger profits. We know lots of individuals that have better quality animals. Instead of putting that money into quantity, they put that money into quality. They put that money maybe into really nice show stock or really nice genetics that's highly desirable, and they make far more money off those animals than they ever would have by adding more and more and more animals to their flock. If you're new to sheep and goats, we want you to consider start off with a few, start off with 2, start off with 3, work your way into it. Go through a lambing season, go through a kidding season, see how you like it, and then go from there. And if you're not having a good time with this, then you're doing something wrong. Nobody cares how many animals you have. No more than anybody cares how long you've been doing this. You know, I know lots of veterinarians that are really, really sharp that have just been out of school maybe a year or 2. I know some veterinarians that have been doing this for 30 years and they're awful. You know this just like I do in your daily life. Think of the people that you work with. Does quality always increase with amount of experience? No. This goes for teachers. This goes for doctors. This goes for lawyers. You know, sometimes it just comes down to how much are you willing to learn and how much effort are you willing to put into this. So don't ever let somebody shut you down and tell you that your ideas aren't good or your education isn't good or your animal husbandry skills aren't good, just based off of the number of animals that you have and the amount of time that you've been doing this. I'm Tim from Linessa Farms, specialty in heirloom livestock. Thanks for joining us again today, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.